Today we got it. And so today we're wanting to have the information session on the 2023 Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program funding opportunity. Within this opportunity, there are going to be 2 projects. And so at the end of this presentation, you can go ahead and ask any questions. But if you have any questions while we are talking through this funding opportunity, feel free to put that into the chat and we'll make sure we answer that as a part of this if we can get to it at this time. We are also accepting questions on the back end. And so there will be a slide that talks about how you go about asking those questions. We'll also publish those answers so that people can reference those as well. So this funding opportunity is being given to us by the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program. We were awarded these funds in September of 2021 as one of 33 communities throughout the country that was selected for this funding. In order to access these funds, we've met with stakeholders as well as other youth and adults who are at the center of this work to help with the decision-making process and develop what is our CCP, our Coordinated Community Plan. Agencies at this moment are being sought to implement the eligible activities and participate in this process so that we can implement this programming that young people need most. The period of performance for this funding opportunity will be from the contract execution through November 30th of 2024. Currently, we are working to get this extended. And so that's why we do have this information here that HUD will likely extend this period of performance. Currently, we can't say for how long, and so I did not want to list that here. Montgomery County does reserve the right to reject any or all proposals at any time, and we do reserve the right to cancel, withdraw, modify, or reissue this funding opportunity for any time or any reason. Once someone is awarded these funds, they would meet with our TA assistants just to come up with some sort of spend down plan. That way, these funds could be used within that time frame. Our eligible applicants are eligible nonprofit organizations, state, local government, and instrumentalities of the state and local government. One who is eligible for this will also be required to at least provide a match of 25% in cash or in in-kind resources. The population to be served. So YHDP, or the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program, it serves mostly youth and young adults, or all of youth and young adults who are ages 18 to 24. What you will notice in these boxes are some of the specific groups that we noticed are really lacking when it comes to support within the homeless system. And so we have named that we have households with unaccompanied minors, youth under the ages of 18, unaccompanied youth and young adults 18 to 24, where no one 25 or older is present. We really want to work with pregnant and parenting youth and young adults. And we also want to work with participants who turn 25. And so those people who are enrolled in this program prior to exiting that youth and young adult age range will still be eligible for services once they turn 25, as long as it's through that duration of the program. The application evaluation timeline. What you'll notice is we have the link to where the funding opportunity is. And just because we wanted to make sure you would be able to find it, because we are actually in the midst of providing many funding opportunities, we wanted you to see the applications for the Enhanced Coordinated Entry System Navigation funding, as well as the Diversion and Rapid Rehousing funding opportunities. These will be done through EC Impact and will be due on September 8th at 5 p.m. We have a timeline that is below, but the dates are subject to change. What is not subject to change is the application due date, which is, again, September 8th. We are looking to have a written review of those applications done by September 15th and having that in-person interview, I'm sorry, not in person, but virtual interview the week of September 25th. The goal of this interview will be to clarify any questions, and we'll make sure that both the rubric for the written interviews as well as the interview processes are provided to applicants. We hope to award the selected providers by October 31st. And upon being awarded or accepting that award, we would like to start our monthly project planning meeting with me, who is the YHDP coordinator, and our TA, which is Aubrey, and she'll do a lot more speaking as we get into the deeper parts of the program. Our hope is that programming will start in early November after contracts have been completed. So that way we have a year to get through this funding opportunity at a minimum. Again, the hope is that we will be able to extend this beyond that November of 2024 period of performance. And so now I'll go ahead and get into the YHDP project descriptions. So, Aubrey, I'll go ahead and let you take the reins from here.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Good to see you all here. Like Lakeisha said, I'm Aubrey Sittler. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the technical assistance provider that is basically additional capacity provided by HUD as a part of you guys getting YHDP, and I've been around since the beginning of that planning process a couple of years ago. So I recognize several names on this call from all of you participating in that planning process and kind of being at the table since then, but really nice to see some new names and new faces as well. So I wanted to give a little bit of context for where you all have been as a community that has led you to this point of funding these two new project types. So during the planning period of YHDP that Lakeisha mentioned earlier, she said you had to go through a pretty robust planning process to document for HUD what you wanted to use this new money for and how it was going to fit into the rest of your system. One of the things that we did was create this map of what your current youth homelessness system looks like. So over here, you've got, these people that are highlighted yellow in this particular graphic. This is folks who are experiencing homelessness or housing instability or at imminent risk of homelessness. And right now, in your community, they might go to some kind of community organization, like a library somewhere else that is not participating in the coordinated entry system, or they might go straight to a coordinated entry system access point. So that includes Path Outreach, that includes the Daybreak Shelter. But if they go to a community org that is not part of coordinated entry, they still need to end up at one of these access points to get access to anything else in your system over here. So once someone has kind of come to that front door of the system, there are a few different pathways that they might take out of it. Some folks might end up enrolling in and staying in emergency shelter. Others might self-resolve their experience of homelessness. Others might not stay in shelter, but might go straight to transitional housing or rapid rehousing, or in some cases, permanent supportive housing. You guys don't have any PSH that is dedicated to youth and young adults, but there are people under the age of 25 who are sometimes prioritized for and who move into permanent supportive housing. All of this with the goal of exiting to permanent housing long-term on their own. Also just want to name, people might use any combination of resources between that front door and exiting to permanent housing that you see up here. So we did this to kind of map out what currently exists, how do people flow through your system? And then the question we asked ourselves was, what are the gaps? What is it that would really, really help youth and young adults if you had either more of it, or if there were new programs, new projects that could help young people get from that experience of housing instability and homelessness to that kind of permanent housing outcome more quickly, more equitably, and more sustainably. So if we can go to the next slide, please. This is the map that we came up with of your ideal youth homelessness system. And this one shows you which projects you funded with YHDP. And in particular, this highlights the new programs that are funded with this funding opportunity. Like Lakeisha mentioned, there are two different ones. And then we'll kind of get into what those projects are in a second, but we wanted you to be able to see where they fit into your system from that kind of current map into this ideal map. So the main places that these programs fit in is really closer to that front end of the system. Neither one of these projects is supposed to be a long-term, super intensive intervention with youth and young adults. One of them is this system navigation coordinated and enhanced coordinated entry project. So it's really enhancing those access points and offering some more intensive system navigation, housing problem solving, et cetera, at that front door before people would go into any other type of project. And the other one is a diversion and rapid resolution project where maybe someone would go into an emergency shelter for a couple of days, but in general, the point is to be able to use kind of staff capacity, case management, other kind of service approaches and funding to divert young people from having to go to shelter, from having to go to transitional, rapid, or permanent supportive housing. So again, I'm offering this to kind of give you all the bird's eye view of, okay, when I'm thinking about these two projects, where do they fit into the system? And again, it's really in this front door. It's really trying to kind of be able to meet folks where they are up front so that they don't end up having to go through multiple projects in the system if they don't actually need those resources. Lakeisha, I think I'm turning it back over to you for the walkthrough of the projects, unless you want to defer to me about it. Totally.
No problem. Thank you. So one of our first projects is, well, our first project, and there's no order between them. So that's why you heard me kind of, because I don't want to make one more of a priority than the other. But the first project that I'm introducing to you all is the Enhanced Coordinated Entry System Navigation. This project will take more of a targeted universalism approach to promoting the access to the system for young people who are overrepresented in the homeless system, who often have worse outcomes, including but not limited to Black youth and youth of color, LGBTQ plus youth, disabled and neurodivergent youth, as well as undocumented youth. And so what we are looking for is to have a project that includes the 2 full-time system navigators, and the funding available will be, I apologize for that, $405,785 through the period of performance. The match that will be required will be $82,287. I wanted to go more into what a system navigator does. And so what that is they conduct the outreach, they do the assessments, they do the triage for those at-risk youth. They then establish the coordinated entry access points as that initial contact. And so these locations will be discussed, or this location will be discussed, but that's what will happen from there. The hope is that they would go ahead and provide the case management, help with the housing search, do the referrals, and then do some housing problem solving. They will also lead in landlord recruitment, retention, and case conferencing. They will collaborate with our Youth Action Board, also known as our YAB, and our YHDP core team. They will also conduct the youth coordinated entry assessments, as well as facilitate system matches and referrals as guided by the Continuum of Care. And they will guide youth and young adults for housing and service programs to ensure a smooth transition. And so right now, what we want is someone that will really go hand in hand with our youth as they get through this very difficult time. And so we want to make sure that they are also collaborating with our Youth Action Board, because those who are on our Youth Action Board have lived experience in surviving homelessness or being unhoused. And so we really want to make sure that the organization that is taking on this beautiful task is also working hand in hand with our Youth Action Board. Just so you all know, there are a couple links that are in our chat. I wanted to go more in depth about the targeted universalism, and we can talk more about that at the Q&A. But basically, it's just making sure that one of the most for the most extenuating circumstance, we are able to hopefully be able to cater to that person in the hopes that it caters for all of us. So think of perhaps a wheelchair ramp that could be used potentially for someone with a stroller or someone that has a difficulty accessing stairs, someone who is carrying a suitcase. When we help those who are most marginalized, we typically help all of us. I want to get into diversion and rapid resolution. This project is designed to provide an immediate and short-term, up to 3 months on average, response to a youth or young person's housing crisis that supports them in staying out of the homeless system longer term. The goal here is to have diversion specialists, and we have the funding available of $405,785 through the period of performance. The match required here will be $97,810. And so the diversion specialist does a lot of the mediation program between youth and young adults. What you'll notice is we have landlords, but we also have roommates and family members, because the cool thing about YHDP is we recognize that sometimes landlords take the form of family members. Sometimes it takes the form of roommates. And so the goal would be able to help resolve disputes and barriers for a young adult or youth in maintaining housing. We would have that diversion specialist also help with the housing navigation services process. So making sure they're doing some housing focused problem solving, provide flexible funding, such as paying rental assistance or utility short-term, or paying for eligible services needed to obtain or maintain housing as needed. We want supportive services as needed to support youth and young adults in diverting from or rapidly exiting the system. We also want progressive engagement to ensure connections to other resources and programs and systems as needed, including the housing navigators, who are also a part of that coordinated entry system if the project cannot meet the needs of the enrolled participants. And I wanted to make sure that, Aubrey, if you had anything to add to those two projects, you had the opportunity to do so.
I don't think I have anything to add right now. I think the questions that folks raised later, I'm curious to see what is resonating and, you know, what clarity people would want to have based on some of these descriptions.
All right. So as a part of being one of the projects selected for YHDP, we will also offer support through the participation of this work group, and we also have several others that people can participate in. Aubrey, would you like to speak more to this?
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you. So one of the things that we're going to be getting started up soon is this YHDP project implementation group. So there was another RFP about a year ago where Daybreak was funded to do the rapid rehousing project that some of your YHDP money is going toward. So they're already up and running, but there are certain kind of requirements with any of these projects that the community has to make some decisions around. Things like policies and procedures for how people are getting matched to those resources. There are some special activities that YHDP projects can do and can pay for that require them to have like standard processes for, okay, well, how are you deciding in the case of that rapid rehousing project that young people could possibly get more than 24 months of rental assistance? Like that's, again, it's a special thing that YHDP projects can do. So in addition to kind of those logistical and like required elements of implementing these projects, it's also that, you know, the rapid rehousing project and these two projects that are currently open for you all to apply to, they came out of this really deep and broad planning process. And there were intentions, there was vision behind what people were collectively hoping they would accomplish. Part of what this implementation group is going to focus on is making sure that these projects are kind of remembering what that vision was and what that buy-in was from the community. It's not just a situation where people get selected to put these projects into place and they run off on their own and do their own thing. It's very much okay, we're collectively going to make sure that we are upholding this vision and holding ourselves accountable to the people in the community who help to contribute to the vision for these. And so that we are doing our very best to be a part of a system that is working together to end homelessness for youth and young adults. and their families. I also just want to call out, so if you end up being funded to put one of these projects into place, you will be expected to have, at least somebody from your agency participating in them and kind of adhering to whatever the group kind of collectively comes up with. You're also welcome to join this group if you want to be a thought partner with whoever gets funded for these two projects and with the Rapid Rehousing project that's been funded with YHDP as well. Anyone's welcome to join. We, welcome that collaboration for sure. So definitely want the people who are funded to be at the table coming up with those expectations, but also welcome other people to be a part of this. So if you are interested in starting to participate in this project implementation working group, has not been convened yet. I told Lakeisha earlier this week that I was happy to take the lead on convening it. So hoping to get some communications out in the next couple of weeks. Feel free to send Lakeisha and me an email if you want to be a part of this. And again, once these projects get funded, we will make sure that whatever organizations are funded to put them into place are a part of this work moving forward.
Thanks, Aubrey. Skipped ahead a bit. So here I wanted to go ahead and list our required documents. We will make sure that we place this information on the page as well. What you'll notice is that we didn't require these documents until contracting. We just asked that you affirm that you could provide them within those funding opportunity applications. But I wanted to make sure that you all saw what was needed in order to move forward. And so we have our audit, the management letter, we have the current tax return, current budget, board roster, financial statements, the disclosures, diversity, equity, inclusion statement and policy, and the IRS determination letter. I also wanted to include the different references that we had discussed within the application. So you will notice both applications have their own appendix. There is a piece of coordinated entry that you all will also want to look at. Aubrey, you might have the better name for it because I can't, it's a very long title, but here we have our current coordinated community plan to end homelessness. We have our YHDP NOFO, the CLC program interim rule, as well as Appendix A. And Aubrey, I'll pass that part to you.
Yeah, so it's the coordinated entry notice. So it's HUD's official guidelines for what a coordinated entry system has to have. I think if that's something you've never looked at before and you're curious about those federal requirements for a coordinated entry system as a whole, then by all means, take a look at that. I can stick the link into the chat in just a second. But for purposes of like implementing these particular projects and how they support coordinated entry activities, we will make sure that the implementation of it kind of aligns with the community's vision and values and processes, as well as federal requirements.
Thank you very much. All right, so we will be accepting questions via email, not until September 8th. This is not correct. We're going to want to have questions up until the 1st. That way we have time to put those questions up for everyone who is interested, and then have time for you all to make any type of modifications that you need to make to your application. Please include the YHDP funding opportunity question in the subject line, just so we know specifically what this question is for. And all of the questions and responses will be posted in that funding opportunity area of the youth homelessness demonstration program portion. And so now I'll go ahead and open up questions if anyone has them. I noticed that there aren't any in the chat. So I'll ask you just to come off mute and feel free to ask.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. I'm Thomas Scroggins. I wanted to ask a question about the matching funds. I understand that a piece of what we can use for the matching funds are sort of in-kind donations and services and things like that. I wanted to know, in terms of that, do you all count volunteers who are offering some type of special skill? Or is that one of the things that we can utilize in terms of classified as in-kind services or income for the matching funds?
Aubrey, I'll pass this on to you.
Hi. I need to refresh myself on that. Let me look into that for a second, and I will get back to you before the end of this conversation.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I had another small question if nobody else raised their hand. Okay. I wanted to know, would you be funding is there an opportunity for multiple projects to be funded under, one category, or is it sort of a one takes all type of opportunity for the two funding opportunities you're offering?
This is something I really would prefer to get back to you on, Thomas, if you don't mind. So typically what has happened in the past is we often will award it to one organization, and perhaps they could partner with other organizations to complete this goal or meet the goal of the mission. But I want to make sure that I'm accurate in answering this. So I'll make sure I let you know, and then I'll also make sure I put this answer on the site.
Okay, perfect. I had one more small question. I'm sorry. I'm throwing all the questions at y'all. That's about the application documents. So you talked about it for a bit, some of the things that were offered. I wanted to ask specifically about the audited financial statements and the tax returns. As a newer organization, I'm nearing the end of our first year, and so getting the audit financial statements is usually a little more difficult to do unless you've gone through your full year, but specifically the tax returns are an issue. I saw the document where they graded the applications, and it was like a score. So would this, if say I wasn't able to, I can provide financials, but not the audit ones, would that just be a thing of a scoring issue, or would the entire application be kind of voided because of that?
Aubrey, what are your thoughts?
I'm actually wondering if Jessica wants to chime in on that.
Yeah, so an audit actually is a requirement for contracting with Montgomery County. So that actually would be a funding condition. So unfortunately, that would be, to Lakeisha's point about kind of, there is a duration for contracting. So perhaps this is a multi-year contract. You could perhaps, come in the future as a contracted partner. We would, again, have to kind of look at the term of this and look at kind of where you may come in the future. But again, the audit is actually a funding condition and a requirement for our county.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you very much. I'll see if I can figure out what I can do to make sure that happen. If not, like you said, may just have to look at this as a future opportunity for connection with an existing project or something else. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you.
And Thomas, I have an answer to your match question. So there are two kinds of match that you can get. You were asking specifically about not cash match, but in-kind match for volunteers and their time counting toward that match. The short answer to your question is yes, you can use volunteer time as part of the match that goes toward this, whatever project you might be funded for. The thing is that the point of match is around like the dollar amount that you're bringing to it. So you're not paying volunteers, they're volunteers. You have to have a standard rate for like dollars per hour that volunteers would be considered to be making for the work that they're doing as volunteers. And so, you would have to like keep track of that. You'd have to document that of, okay, well, we had 100 hours worth of this particular activity. And we're assuming that it would be X number of dollars per hour. So therefore, that's the dollar amount that's going toward our in-kind match for that particular volunteer activity. The other thing for everyone to always keep in mind related to match, regardless of whether it's cash match or in-kind match, is it has to be for activities that are eligible under the project. So you cannot, if you have another funding source that wants to pay for stuff that the project can't pay for, that wouldn't count as match. That would count as like a very great and complementary way to approach kind of comprehensive support for folks in the project, but it wouldn't technically count as that match requirement. It has to be for things that you would otherwise be paying for with project money because it's an eligible cost and activity.
Thank you. Thank you.
We get some like reactions from people about, you can type in the chat, you can use the reactions button in Zoom. Is anyone thinking of applying to at least one of these opportunities? Are you feeling excited about applying to one of these opportunities? Just trying to do a vibe check. Just got one.
The good news is if you don't have any questions now, we have recorded this session. And so if you have any questions as you process this presentation, feel free again to email. Again, my email is Copeland, COPELANDL @mcohio.org. Make sure that you use the subject line of YHDP funding opportunity. And so I'm so thankful for all of your interest in this funding opportunity, both of these funding opportunities. And again, there are other ways to get involved, so feel free to contact myself or Aubrey if you are interested in learning more about what YHDP is already doing and what we are trying to do with this funding opportunity. I thank you all so much for your time. Feel free to send me a message, but we'll go ahead and end this session here. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you all.